All right, welcome everybody. Looks like some folks are still showing up, but let's get started. So today's webinar is a general introduction of the Verve Safe Lift Exosuits for today's distribution center. A couple of housekeeping things. I'll do a little bit. Let's see. I'll do a little bit of a demo. So if you want to see the talking head along with the slides, the side-by-side mode in Zoom might be pretty good for that. I will try to keep up with all the questions in the Q&A session, not the chat, the Q&A. So feel free at any time, drop your questions, and we won't leave without answering every one of them. And we'll do a couple polls, so we invite you to participate. All right, with that, let's dive in. First, we have next week and the week after, we're doing two more webinars. Next week is a deeper dive on case studies. I'll share some of the results from the field from our customers today, but really as a summary. And next week, we'll dive into how the various sites, various departments measure the benefits in terms of productivity, injury reduction, et cetera. And we have probably 6 or 7 long-term studies that we'll be sharing. And then the week after, March 7th, is a deeper dive on Verve Logic, which is basically the suits capture a great deal of information about movement, which can be translated into insights around safety, ergonomics. And so that can be used to help both individuals and teams and the facility. Make the facility safer, make the facility's layout better, make the teams safer. So we'll do a deep dive on that on March 7th. So that's 2 upcoming webinars. And we'll send this around to all attendees as well. So if you didn't grab the QR codes right now, there'll be a way to deal with that. So let's dive in. Today, I'll cover what's the problem we're solving, a little bit of background on the company, SafeLift solution. I'll do a brief live demo, but actually most of it, you can see it running in the field. I'll share a little customer video as well. And then share a little bit about how folks looking for exosuits, what they're using as a selection criteria to evaluate SafeLift, to evaluate other solutions with, so that if you're choosing a system out there, what are possible things to consider. All right. So with that, dive in. And again, I invite you to drop your questions right in the Q&A. First, what's the problem we're solving? The problem we're solving is the jobs that require a lot of lifting, a lot of bending, a lot of strain on the back, the overexertion, the injuries, the resulting fatigue, both lost kind of quality of life for the individuals and the productivity for the companies. Very typical, somebody working in a warehouse could be lifting a couple hundred times an hour. So it winds up being a couple thousand lifts per day, lifting 20, 30 pounds, very typical to lift 50,000 pounds. So, within a month, you're talking about somebody's back is lifting in the order of 1 million pounds. So it's very significant. And so that has an impact on particularly high injury rates for a lot of these jobs. And lower back injuries it's the most common injury in the workplace. In the US alone, about 1 million of these injuries per year. Typical injury, tens of thousands of dollars between the medical bills, workers' comp, et cetera. So you're talking about a problem collectively in the US alone is tens and actually over 100 billion if you add up the medical expenses, the finding an alternative, somebody to do the job, lost productivity because of fatigue even before the injury sets in. The jobs are a grind, it's a turnover. So there's a lot of challenges associated with this that add up to pretty significant, over $100 billion kind of problems for U.S. businesses. So before I jump into the solution, I want to do the first poll and invite you to participate. Curious let's see, where are the polls? I'm not sure the poll is visible. Well, that's my bad. Uh, if you if you could drop in the chat, what are some of the reasons? I would love to get a sense of what are the kind of problems you're thinking to solve with exoskeletons. All right, we'll see if we can work that one out. In the meantime, I'll jump right into the company. So we're a wearable robotics company spun out of Harvard's Biodesign Lab, based on about a decade of research funded by the military. We're a venture-backed company, raised over $40 million, have been shipping a product for 4 years now and scaling across a bunch of different industries. Collectively, we've helped American workers lift over 300 million pounds, and these suits are in use every month. Millions of lifts are being done, assisted by the suit. Yes, the Q&A comment is chat is disabled. You're right, it's disabled. So that feel free to put your questions or comments right in the Q&A portion. Thank you for that. All right, we'll continue. So what we've made, what we've commercialized is the Safe Lift suit. Basically, you're wearing a robot, wears like a backpack, and with each lift, it takes on the order of 40% of the strain off the lower back. So that red ribbon you see works in parallel with your lower back muscle, and it's very good at detecting, the suit's very good at detecting when you need assistance. So most of the time you can move around. So here's my brief, at least mobility demo. And it's very easy to move around, stretch. And then there's this red ribbon, which kicks into gear when assistance is needed. So it provides assistance in parallel with the biological muscles, reducing the strain on those muscles. These are some of our customers, so some of the logos you'll recognize, some you won't, and that's kind of the point. This is technology accessible to companies large and small. Typical applications are, you see a number of different jobs illustrated here. What they all have in common, though, is there's some significant strain on the back. There's frequent lifting, frequent bending, either lifting or lowering kind of operations. Yeah. All right. So next, here's a brief video. So once the suit basically has 8 adjustment points. Once it's fitted, which takes a couple of minutes per individual, the suit is tailored for the individual. Your associate comes up, takes it out of the locker, puts it on much like a backpack. There's a brief calibration procedure. You see it tightening it up, brief calibration procedure. That's then the suit knows how tall the individual is, what upright is, and now you're ready to put it into action. So the solution is $4,500 per year, and that includes the suit itself, all the supporting hardware, which I'll mention in a second, Verve Logic, the software, which I'll also mention in a second, that captures motion information and provides motion-based insights for both individual coaching and team and facility improvement, and Verve Care. So that's both onboarding support as well as ongoing support, assistance, and maintenance, warranty, and repair. So it's basically deployment, ongoing support, and warranty like Apple Care, for example. A little bit of a deep dive for each of those. So the suit itself, it offloads weight from the lower back, taking the strain off the lower back. It put it on, it takes tens of seconds. The entire solution is floor ready, so you get, I'll show in a couple slides, the lockers, the supporting infrastructure, the gateways to transmit the data to the Verve cloud. Then there's the Verve Logic. So that's the software piece of the solution. So captures motion-based insights, and then you can use that A to look at individuals and provide coaching for them on ways they're lifting today and ways those lifting metrics, the safety, the ergonomics can be improved. And then you can slice and dice this data, zoom out and look by team, by shift, by hired cohort, by department, by facility, and really improve at the organizational level. And then Verve Care, it's, as I mentioned, it's the onboarding, it's ongoing support, both on-site and remote, as well as protection, warranty, and repair. So if you have 100 suits at this facility, you always have 100 suits available at the facility. A couple points worth mentioning. Looks like there's at least a couple questions. I'll answer them. How is it offloading the weight? What's the mechanism? So this backpack is it's a robot, and it mechanically applies a force along this red ribbon. And since it's wearable robotics, that force, it's not elastics or anything, it's a very specific closed loop control of the force. And so you can have, in fact, this is a very powerful capability of the robotic aspect. You can have the assistance force tailored to the individual and the task. So, for example, if I'm unloading something and I mostly need support on the way down, you can choose, with a press of a button, a different assistance profile. And so it's really gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility. Next question looks like about the subscription. That's an annual payment. So one way to think about it is the suit is $8 to $10 a day, and that pays for itself by 10 a.m. I say it pays for itself based on kind of injury reduction and ROI studies our customers have done. I'll mention in a little bit more, in a couple more slides, we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. Looks like next question is subscription option the only option? Generally, the answer is yes. Say generally. So there's kind of, how is the service delivered? The service is delivered as a subscription. For example, the warranty, it's there for a certain period of time. The support that's needed, you kind of need that on an ongoing basis. So it's delivered as a subscription. You sign up for year after year. Now, can it be paid out of a capital versus operating budget? The answer is yes. And so we've worked with customers for some of the larger deployments. Sometimes there's capital expenses, and so somebody might sign a several year contract. All right. Let's see. What's worth mentioning? So the suit is it's one size fits most. 5 foot to over 6'6", extra small to double XL, male, female. We've had folks 130 pounds weight, folks 300 plus pounds. It takes 30 seconds to put on, and it's pretty short period of time. You can measure it in days, what it takes to actually deploy at a facility. Let's see. Here's a couple examples of what a facility, what a deployment on site at a customer site might actually look like. You see, you got the lockers. There's a support terminal, so at any point you can, there's questions on the suit, you can contact our support team, and there's, of course, charging stations for the batteries. The batteries are light. Here. That'll be the box I'm lifting in a couple minutes. This is the battery. You can quickly see, is it charged, not charged? Pretty light battery, and that lasts a full day plus overtime, so thousands of lifts. All right, a couple words on the software piece. So you have the worker dashboards and group dashboards. And worker dashboards, you can see some of the key metrics, the weight offloaded, lifts, et cetera. And then for the 4 most dangerous aspects of what makes a lift safe or not safe. If it triggers the key conditions that are kind of highest correlation with lower back injury. For example, are you bending or are you squatting, lifting basically with your knees, or you're doing it unsafe, lifting and really extending the back? Are you twisting versus rotating your torso? Are you side bending? Are you prolonged bending? So if a lift violates any of those kind of points, then it's triggered as a unsafe lift. And then you can see, if you think about it over a day, you're doing thousands of lifts. You can very quickly start to get meaningful statistics on what fraction of your lifts are safe, not safe, and what specific actions can you make in terms of lifting techniques to make yourself safer. So you can do that for individual coaching. And then you can zoom out, and this is a very powerful capability. You can make custom groups, and so you can group folks by job function or by the department, by the shift, by the hiring cohort, the facility, parts of the warehouse, and you can really start to see as groups where you have more or less safe kind of movements, and start to see not just in terms of groups and their training, but you can also see, for example, this part of the facility might be associated with less safe lifts. Maybe it's the way certain goods are oriented in that facility. So this kind of ergonomics and safety dashboards for the individual and for custom groups is a really powerful capability. And with that, let's dive right into some of the results from the field. Before that, let me answer a few of the questions. Let's see. Replace are the suits if there's normal wear and tear and abuse. So normal wear and tear, if there's a problem, that's part of the coverage, of course. That's the point. You get 100 suits, you always have that 100 suits available. If the suit pulls parallel to the spine, the suit replaces the forces, the muscles are no longer delivering. This means there's compression forces remain approximately the same. So there's two things in this question, I think. One is, are there compression forces? What happens to the muscle activity? Is the muscle, for example, in the extreme case, going to atrophy? The answer is no. The answer is no, because it doesn't offload all the weight. All the muscles are still activated. The question is, how much of the strain is removed? And the peak strain is removed by about 40%. We also have many, to do the math, but it's many millions of, I think it is at this point millions of years of usage. I don't know if it's on the order of 10 million, but it's millions of years of usage with literally zero evidence. And customers are looking at this pretty closely. No evidence of injuries from muscles atrophying, for example. So that's one. As far as compression forces, if you do the free body diagram of what happens on the spine, so between the spine and the red ribbon, the red ribbon actually has a better moment arm, better lever arm relative to the spine than the muscle, the lower back muscle. So if the lower back muscle, for example, has a moment arm relative to the spine of maybe a quarter inch or even less, the red ribbon, it might be a couple inches away. And so hundreds of newtons applied along the red ribbon actually reduces the forces involved in the lower back muscles. So the compression forces are actually they're comparable, but they're actually reduced. And you can work that out by doing the free body diagram. You have the object you're lifting, which is causing a moment. Let's say it's 25 pounds times a foot and a half. And then you have the spine, and you have the red ribbon. So that collectively there's less compression forces on the spine. Happy to whiteboard this after if there's more questions on that. Are we partnering to sell through distribution? The short answer is we're exploring that. If somebody has an interest in that, you have kind of organizations, we've seen folks that do ergonomics consulting. We've seen some complementary products that are sold into warehouses and distribution centers. So if that's the case, definitely feel free to reach out and be happy to chat. We have a couple pilots on that going on. Let's see, is the suit sensitive to powder, dust, or wet manufacturing environments? So depending on the environment, there's a few different specifications. We have seen the suits, for example, it's not waterproof. So if there's heavy rain, it's not really designed for outside use. So on that one, we do have some fairly dirty environments and environments where there's some powder and dust. But let's look specifically at your case before saying yes or no. Historically, what have the customers done with the output reports? Any specific success stories we can share with the groups? So at the individual level, it's as simple as it's very clear who are the folks doing very good lifting in terms of safety. And so you might have a leaderboard, and the software actually provides that, or the best lifters in the organization. And then there's a cross-training opportunity with folks that might have the lower lifting metrics, lower safety, lower safe lift score. You'll see a little bit of that in video in another couple of slides. Now, should be mentioned, so it's used for coaching, so that's been a pretty consistent success story. And then the slicing and dicing, we have seen where, for example, a second shift might get less training on proper lifting techniques, and actually they start out worse than the day shift, but then by monitoring it and calling it out, the numbers improve significantly. All right, let's see, next question. Are we selling in Europe yet? No, we have our hands full in the United States, but I expect that in the second half of this year, we probably start to look at pilots. Can the suits be worn with a fall protection harness? Yes, can be done both over the suit, under the suit. We have customers using it, for example, in warehouses, like loaded in cherry picker. So there's a number of sites that are doing that. All right. How do we know how much weight is offloaded if you don't know the weight of the object people are wearing? A great question. So in fact, let's say somebody's just bending down. The suit knows exactly how much force it's applying, but it doesn't know how much of that force is the torso, what is the torso weigh, and what is the object. So what we've done is a number of electromyography studies where you're actually measuring the exact activity in the lower back muscle. You see the activity when people are lifting light objects, heavy objects, range of people, and then the suit is adjusted, kind of programmed to apply a certain amount of force. And so what you're hearing, that percentage is an average. On average, your lower back is working as hard as if you were lifting something 40% lighter. That's where that 40% number comes from. Again, happy to dive into that probably offline. All right, I'm going to get to a few more slides and then keep the questions coming. All right. Let's see. So the key metrics, the summary of kind of the three buckets of benefits, customers are seeing significantly lower injury rates. And to some extent, that injury rate depends on, well, what is what's being lifted, what is the facility like, what is the environment, how frequent that lifting is. But what we've seen pretty consistently across a number of studies is over half the injuries are eliminated. So sometimes it's 60%. In some particularly challenging environments, it's as high as 85%, or let's say 6 out of 7 injuries prevented. Like, the rate drops significantly. So one key benefit is injury reduction. Second is the facility productivity improvement. So that comes kind of from in 2 ways. One is people are less fatigued, and even when the associates aren't rewarded for additional work, that fatigue that normally takes place over the course of a day is much more reduced. And so putting in the same sort of effort, you wind up seeing a few percent kind of improvement in facility productivity. In some places that matters a lot, others matters less so, but there is a noticeable fatigue-related improvement in terms of productivity. The other benefit that's much harder to measure, but also contributes in terms of facility overall productivity, is if you have you're an organization with less people out of commission, less short-term help, lower turnover, and less newer folks coming in with understandably initially a lower kind of productivity metrics relative to experienced folks. That also contributes a few percent. And so collectively, we've seen pretty consistently several percent facility productivity. And while the injuries aren't the only reason these jobs are high turnover jobs, the jobs are a grind. And so this, the difficulty of the job contributes in a big way to the turnover. And so that can be reduced as well by having folks that are happier, less fatigued. You'll see a little bit of that as well. The other thing that should be mentioned on the productivity is, in addition to the average productivity goes up, one of the very interesting things we've noticed is folks that might be on the tail end of kind of lower they might be, so you have let's say median productivity level. There is going to be some 10, 15, 20% of the population that is much, much lower. It could be 20, 30% lower than that median. What we've seen is folks wearing the suit, the distribution of the productivity is dramatically heightened. And so the folks that might have been before at 60 or 80% productivity of the median productivity become much, much closer to that median as well. It's worth pointing out. All right. I'll mention this case study, and then I'll actually play the video. It's just about 4 minutes, and you can see perspective of folks on the management side of things, the workers themselves doing the work of lifting the suits, as well as the safety personnel. So you can kind of see everybody's perspective. So this particular case study is Ahold Delhaize, one of the largest retail food groups in the world. They've deployed the exosuits at multiple facilities. In this particular case, it's a site in Schodack, New York, a pretty large site, 600,000 square feet, and serving almost 90 Hannaford stores across New England and New York. And so they noticed, so this is in their, I think at this point, the 4th year of deployment, significant injury reduction. It's very high throughput facility, over 1 million cases per week. And well, let's just take a look at the video. Let's see if I get the sound right as well.
Overall, it's about a 600,000 square foot facility. Ships out grocery, frozen, perishable product, your meat, your produce, your dairy. We had a pretty substantial problem, particularly with newer folks in the job with strains and sprains. It's the #1 injury that we had in the building. And we test a lot of things. So we kind of threw our hat in the ring for it. Started with a small amount of exosuits, and that has grown to where we're at now.
We're one of 2 full case distribution centers servicing Hannaford retail. We service 86 stores out of this DC. As far as case volume, currently we're anywhere between 1 million to 1.1 million cases a week. As far as selecting, which is where we use the Verve suits, of course, at any given point we could have 80 selectors on the floor at one given time. So current state, we have 130 Verve suits, and all of our new hires wear the suit. We've identified that group as the greatest risk for injury, and therefore outfitted with the suit to try to prevent those low back strains and back injuries in general.
I'm involved in anything that has to do with safety and making sure that our associates get to go home the same way they came in. I was very excited because I know that a lot of the wear and tear on our associates comes over time, and I saw that this was a great way to give them that longevity that they're going to need. The Exosuit definitely helps with those lower back especially, and those smaller muscles that we really don't recognize all the time. It's keeping our associates safe by having them in the warehouse doing the job that needed to be done and giving them longevity. I think that's the most important part. And this was a great opportunity for our associates, new and old, to have a program in place that looked out for their longevity within the building and making sure that they can go home and spend that time with their family.
So I selected in fresh foods. I think the most difficult part was lifting the heavy cases. Potato bags are 50 pounds at least, so fatigue, the muscle, the back, those were tough times. I selected without the suit probably for a year. After the suit did came in, it helped with the lower back. It was a big plus. After I started wearing the suit, I felt the difference right away. After I select for like 10 hours a day, I would leave and when I go home, I felt great.
I got 3 kids at home. There's some nights I get 2 hours of sleep and it's like, thank God I got the Exosuit, right? I come in, put this bad baby on. If I select 50, 60,000 pounds throughout the course of the day, it may take off 30 to 25. So that gives me the energy to make it home and still do my part as a dad and be with my family. Without this Exosuit, I'd be going home falling asleep on the couch. Yesterday I did 10 of the heaviest assignments actually. I went home, took my kids to the park, cleaned, ran around for a few hours, and they were more tired than me.
You just like, hey, I gotta grab these cases and put them on a pallet and move fast. But the safe lift scores help you, not lift with my back or make sure I lift it with my legs and things like that. So it did help us to pinpoint exactly where guys are going wrong. And then we would have that conversation with them so they can just be aware of, hey, you need to focus in this area and lift properly.
When I first started, my sculpts was like 35, then it worked up to a 45, then I went to a 65, and then I kept it around that 65 to 70 range, and I was good with that range. But I felt the difference when I actually used the suit the proper way, and each category came out. I didn't feel too much of a strain on my body afterwards.
People are the main thing that we're using to move products, and so any technology that we can give them that keeps them safer, gives them a little bit more energy, is a competitive edge, I would say, over other companies that are doing the same thing as us.
All right, let's see. I think at least one question came in. Is there a control group involved in the injury reduction studies? Are you comparing to historical data? There's now, we're aware of at least 7 different studies at multiple sites, some lasting multiple years, other lasting as short as a year. And there's both. There is historical data, which, while noisy, you can, for when you have hundreds of people at a facility, you get a relatively, you can clean up a lot of that noise by looking at long periods of time. So like million operational hours. And so out of those million hours, how many folks get injured? And so there's both historical data, but there's also control groups. People compare same cohort, might be new hires, and looking at new hires versus with a suit, new hires, no suit. So there's a number of studies, and next week we'll dive into in more detail. We can literally see how many people, how many weeks, how many months, how many millions of hours in specific injury rates. All right, just another example of kind of customer benefits. So this was a site where they piloted 25 suits for 3 months, and based on that, made a proposal to their management for 250 suits, and this is their number. So this is, they basically figured out that in those 3 categories, between injury reduction, productivity gains, and turnover reduction, there's something like a 5-month payback for the suits. So that's why I say, it's the suit, you wear it all day, but it pays for itself by about 10 a.m. So that's the pays for itself and then some. Let's see. All right. A little bit about worker sentiment. So what do the people actually wearing the suits say? So this is hundreds. This is an example of surveys that we're constantly doing to both to help steer the product, understand what we could do better, and all the things large and small. For example, the exact padding on the suit to make it that much more comfortable, so it doesn't provide a lot of wear and tear on the different muscles or bones. So the basic results are very high satisfaction sentiment. Would recommend it to a friend, feeling that the suit helps, and ultimately in the facilities where it's optional equipment, and some it's actually made mandatory based on how much of an injury reduction they've seen. But in most facilities today, it is optional, and statistically, we see people preferring to wear the suits. So what we've noticed is, if you're thinking, okay, is this technology that's right for us? There's kind of four criteria we've realized is a make or break. Will this site be successful or not? So one is obviously, is there a use case? Is there consistent, sufficiently frequent, repetitive, heavy lifting, where you might not be lifting very heavy things, but you're doing frequent lifting. And even if you're lifting nothing, half your torso weight is still something significant as far as the strain on the lower back. So is there frequent lifting? So that could be 50 or more times per hour, hundreds of times per day, collectively lifting tens of thousands of pounds per day. So that's the first thing. And the other is, so let's say there is frequent lifting, but are there metrics that we can, by improving some metric, that is actually value to the customer? We've seen cases where you have the use case, but there's not really metrics. Injury rates are already low, productivity is plenty high, there's not a lot of turnover, people are already generally happy. In those cases, it's a nice to have, but it's not a must have. But if there are metrics where you have injuries, you want to improve the quality of life for folks, there's productivity challenges. If there are metrics that can be improved, then this is a case that we've seen, at least the beginning of a conversation. Does it make sense to deploy this? But then there's 2 other factors that are really site specific. One is, at the company, is there a culture of safety? What we've seen is, even if you have the use case, even if you have metrics, the technology, this is change management. And so this or any other technology is not going to be successfully adopted if there's not a culture of safety. And that, proxy for that can be other initiatives. It could be as simple as high visibility vests or steel-toed shoes. Is something rolled out? Is there somebody with a safety role at the headquarters or in the leadership role? So that's a basic thing at the company. And then on site, is there commitment uh, to have somebody that we at the local level partner with to deploy this. And if somebody is got 50 other things they're worrying about in running the distribution facility, it's just not going to be a priority if this is the 51st thing. But if there's genuine interest in improving the key metrics, if there's buy-in at the local site, that then it becomes a very successful site. So kind of this ownership piece is a key one. So you really need all four, and if you don't have all four, then it's probably best to not get into kind of a new change initiative. All right, so with that, I'll mention what we're pretty consistently seeing when folks are choosing an exosuit solution. So one is so these are kind of the six factors companies look at. One is, what is the force, the assistive force? Is it enough to really make a difference? And there's some solutions with pretty low forces that are incremental, that are helpful, but it's not very high. And then there's ones that provide very substantial assistance. So that's the first thing. Second is wearing the suit compatible with my standard workflow? Can I get into the tight spaces? That I normally get into? Can I get to everywhere in the warehouse? If I'm running around, or I might sit down, I might drive a forklift, I might do some paperwork. Do I need to take this this big exoskeleton off me, or is it as simple as backpack that you throw off, or even can keep on? Does it support the diverse workforce? Meaning, you might have folks of all different sizes, different strengths levels. Does it work for everybody? And what is the source of power? Am I the source of power? There's some non-powered solutions where there's no battery. It's powered by your own body. You're storing energy in an elastic or some sort of a band or a spring by bending, and then that energy is released when you're standing back up. That reduces the peak stress on the lower back, which is a good thing, but at the cost of you're actually doing, over the course of the day, more work. So these are some of the factors, and then what kind of data does the suit capture? Does it help collectively? Does the solution help me understand what's going on safety-wise in my organization? So this is criteria we've seen from the field. Sharing it hopefully is hopefully useful list as you consider different things. And so next steps, the basic message is this exosuits. These are obviously still the early days for this kind of technology, but this is being widely used. Exosuits are starting to be deployed. There's now millions of person hours with experience in them, a number of studies and new studies coming out every month about injury reduction and other benefits of such suits. So if you want to explore a safe lift trial, raise your hand. We'll reach out. I'll give my email address as the next slide. And we have, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have a couple of webinars coming up, the customer case studies and deeper dive in the software platform. We'll share all this in a follow-up email as well. Finally, that's my email, ilya.merman@vervemotion.com. Feel free to drop me a note. And now I'll see if there's any other questions. I want to thank everybody for sticking around. We're already at 1:44. Let's see. Be able to provide field support as well as inventory for a national program? Short answer is yes. Longer answer is let's discuss the details behind the question, but yes. All right. Feel free to ask more questions. If there's no more questions, I'll wrap this up. Let's give it just a couple more seconds. Again, thanks everybody for dropping by, and hopefully maybe some of your friends will drop by next Wednesday, same time. All right. Looks like please share a recording of the presentation. We will do that. Any other questions? Don't be shy. All right. Thanks very, very much, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.